The QEH Pulse Radio Show is brought to you with the compliments of MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited.
For all your medical supply needs, visit MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited. We offer a wide range of products including wheelchairs, walkers, canes, crutches, blood pressure machines, stethoscopes, and so much more. Conveniently located on Gemmett's Lane, just a 2-minute walk from the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And for your convenience, we deliver free to the QEH. Open Monday to Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Call us at 624-7542. MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited, your trusted source for medical essentials.
Pleasant good morning to everyone listening to Q100.7 FM for the 7th episode of the Pulse Radio Show. I'm Shane Seeley. It's always a pleasure to be with you. We got a lot to talk about today. I've been promising you this program for the past 2 weeks, and after celebrating what I hope was a great birthday,
pretty good
for Dr. David Byer. He's the consultant and head of the emergency ambulance service. So happy belated birthday.
Thank you, my good man.
It was a good birthday?
It was indeed.
Okay, wonderful. So we're talking about the emergency ambulance service today, and they have been doing some awesome work. I would have posted some stuff on QH Connect's Instagram and Facebook page to let you see the impromptu work that they're sometimes called to do when they're just traveling back to base or anything like that. And one of the senior ambulance officers, he's here to tell you all about the work that they do on the road as well. Mr. Trevor Bynoe.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Trevor, good to have you on. Dr. Byer, always a pleasure to talk to you. We've been very busy at the QH as well. Just to note, coming up in 2 days, today is the 22nd of July, 24/7. So 24/7 is the 24th day of July. We're in the 7th month of the year,
Right.
and we're celebrating our security team on that day because they're working like you, the ambulance service, and all of our services at the QH and in healthcare 24/7. So on that day, we salute the security team, and we'll be doing a number of things, just paying tribute and recognizing their contribution to health as well, because they're very important. I know when the ambulances come into the yard, they're the persons that help to guide the process as well, make sure the area is secure, and make sure that you and your team, Dr. Byer and of course Mr. Bynoe, can do what you need to do in that fashion that you do it in, because everything is an emergency, everything is time sensitive as well.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to talk about a number of things as we go through this morning show, but I always like to start with an introduction, about your work in the field. So Dr. Byer, I'll let you go first. Talk about your work because you didn't start as the head of the ambulance service. So talk a bit about Dr. Byer. Who's Dr. Byer in healthcare?
Yeah, well, I'm just a worker in Barbados, just trying to do my best to see that everybody, gets home safely, do as well as they can do. So I've been a doctor from 1995, and I've joined the emergency ambulance service after specializing in emergency medicine from 2006. So I've been with these guys from then, 18 glorious years.
Wow.
And, made a lot of friends, both in and out the workplace. So we work cohesively to try to see what we can do to deal with the emergencies and the crises and stuff that come up on a day-to-day basis in Barbados.
And recently you've been having to deal with a lot of that. We've seen an increase in some gun violence, in really some societal issues that we're dealing with at a national level. We took a pause recently to recognize what is happening in Barbados and to ask people just to think of alternative ways to settle disputes. And I really hope that they observe the Prime Minister's call to do just that. What about you, Mr. Bynoe? Your work in healthcare and as a senior ambulance officer, I mean, you've been to many, many scenes, many crises. You've been through it all on the road.
Yes. Before I became ambulance officer, I started as an EMT, and that was in 1985. All the way back then. And
you can go to break down some of that jargon for the average listener. EMT,
Yes.
they're going to ask what EMT is. It's a common term, but still.
Emergency medical technician. I started as a technician, and at that time it was an in-service program, and gradually moved up, and it went to BCC, and I did the program there also, and then from then I became a paramedic, also at BCC. I passed that, and from being a paramedic, I went to Byer a couple of times and stuff, did supervisor management and that, and I became an assistant ambulance officer. And a couple of years gone down, I am now the ambulance officer.
Yes, it's all hard work through the years.
A lot of hard work through the years.
That would have brought you to where you are today, helping to manage our team. So let's before we get into the conversation, deeper into this conversation, because there are a number of things that we would like to talk about, some trends that we are seeing on the road that we would like to stop. I remember responding to one of them in the media recently, which was tailgating, where we see there's a level of impatience which has increased in society at all levels. So then you would see some people, you have your sirens on, and then they're driving down behind you to beat the traffic.
Correct.
And that has resulted in accidents involving our ambulance service as well. But we will get into all of that. Let me remind our listeners the numbers that you can call, because I'm pretty sure you will have some questions. It may be about the ambulance service or anything to do with us at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as we seek to serve you. 434-1007 or 434-1070 are the numbers to call. You can also WhatsApp, as you did earlier this morning, 434-1007. So those are your numbers. You can contact us with your concerns, your complaints, your kudos as well. You can share them all with us. I was on the radio with Admiral recently, and we were promoting the radio show, just letting people know that this is the facility where you can call and have some of those concerns, any of those experiences that you may have gone through at the QEH answered. And as expected, people flooded Admiral's phone with their concerns. I want people to flood our complaint section with those concerns as well. And when I say that, that's our clinical risk department. So we would advise you, and I'll give you those numbers this morning as well. But I always tell people, you can go to our website. You'll see there's an area where you can give your feedback and lay your complaints and share your thoughts on your experience with the QEH. I don't want people to just put them out there, send them to your friend, put them on social media, because we want to help to address those concerns. But the best way and the only way we can help is if we get them directly, so that we can respond to your issues and improve the service that we offer at the hospital. So I'll give you those numbers in short order, but let's get into things that the emergency ambulance service, they have been busy working around the clock, making sure that they can get to you when you need them. And I know on the ambulance, the ambulance are very pretty decorated, very they stand out on the road.
Correct.
And you see the number big and bold on them, 511.
Yes.
So if I need an ambulance, or if my family member needed an ambulance for any reason, that is the number I would call, 511.
Yeah, so 511 currently is the number for the emergency ambulance service if you need emergency medical care. Now, I must say some people get it confused, as the police is 211 and the fire is 311. But we have a system in Barbados where we're able to still communicate with those other emergency providers. So if you call the wrong number, we can actually sometimes move the call and the information forward, or at least advise you. I will say behind the scenes, they're working to have a universal universal emergency number, some
Wonderful.
911 or 999, whichever number they decide.
911.
But it will make life a little bit easier for the public, whereby you just call one number, you got access to all the services at one place, and the need to basically tell the same information to more than one entity will probably go away.
And so for now, we're calling 511, but soon from now, there could be that universal number, as we've seen in other countries, the UK, of course, the US is 911. So it would make it a whole lot easier.
Indeed.
You wouldn't have to try to remember 211, 311,
Yeah.
511.
Yeah, it's difficult enough for locals, but you can imagine, obviously, people who are visiting here who are accustomed to those systems and stuff, 911, 999, again, it's difficult for them to remember which number. So it's something that we hope to have in place soon, and when that there comes on board, then all of us can benefit.
Wonderful. And the process of how calls are handled and dispatched when people call 511.
Okay, when you call 511, everything is scripted, right? So the dispatcher will say, what's the address of the emergency, right? First thing first, what the address of the emergency, and then they go through name and what's wrong with you, right? Some people may feel that it's tedious and time consuming, but dispatchers need to know what's going on with you. Right, so you may say, for example, I got pain to my foot. Some people call it pain to the foot, but when my dispatchers go through everything, they realize that it's pain to the calf, which is a different response. And so, pain to foot is one part of script, and then pain to calf put you in a different section. Right, so pain to calf will lead to a thrombus, a clot. Right,
Wow.
So the response would be different.
Okay.
When my guys confused, the response will be different, because we will see it as compared to pain to foot, which is not really a serious emergency, but pain to calf now ups the ante, and the response will be totally different.
So you really want people to be very specific,
Very, very specific.
with their description
Correct.
of where they're feeling the pain. But some people, they may say foot, calf, they may not know, and then you're in that state of not only you're unsure, you're scared.
Correct.
You're worried that your life could be threatened. This could be the end. So all of those things, you're getting that flood, trying to manage your situation. How do you advise someone in that state?
So I'd say that we understand that sometimes it may be a bit difficult to say precisely what's wrong with you in terms of the symptoms, describing them. So we will always err on the side of caution, though. So if basically it's something that we're not clear on, we will probably act in a fashion that to have as if you're dealing with the worst case scenario. What I will say, to add to what he's saying, is that the information is used to what we call triaged calls, which means that when persons call in, we basically have a priority system depending on what the symptoms are. So, case in point, things like chest pain, things like seizures, things like motor vehicle accidents, major trauma, obviously at the top of the line in terms of priority level. So, and why we do that is that, as with every system, there are limited resources, so you got to make sure that your resources are efficient to deal with what basically can be considered life-threatening or limb-threatening. So we try to get to those calls first, and we're not going to forget about the other calls, but certainly those ones, the information that you basically provide then allows us then to guide how we use the resources available.
Right, and in terms of using those resources, and at times you get multiple calls. You don't know what's coming at you at any given point in time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, going through the week. So in terms of getting that accurate picture and dealing with the challenges of getting directions to some of these calls, how do you go about that? That must be difficult.
Well, directions is usually a problem for us. The way how we operate, dispatcher takes the call, they call for staff to come, right? But the problem delay usually is directions, up and down, left, right,
above or below.
Above or below. Some people say usually above or below, but we need to know. We need to, most of the time, a landmark. We need a landmark, and when we get the landmark, and that's where we will go from there. So most delays come from not having accurate directions.
Or as a friend of mine would have said, to me, pass the Bronco.
Yeah, but that's, I remember one time I had a call, and a blue bin is in front of the house.
Right.
And when they turned to the gap, there were truly three, a whole heap of blue bins in front of the house. Which one was it? Didn't know. So we had to call back, and that caused the delay.
Right. Speaking about that, that is one of the complaints that we would receive, and those numbers for complaints, again, as I said to you, send us your concerns, your suggestions, because that's how we seek to improve. You can call our PBX 436-6450 and then go to extension 6334 or 5234, and that should take you to our clinical risk department. The manager is Sandra Beckles-Hackett. Of course, we investigate your complaints. The investigation will take a short time, and then we will get back to you with that response. But it really helps us to up the ante on what we do at the QEH. So getting back to that, people always have, don't let me say always. People complain about delays in the ambulance getting to that point of focus, that point where the individual is that is seeking care. Again, we have seen these things pop up in the media from time to time, the ambulance being blamed for taking too long to get to the scene. Dr. Byer, what occurs in some of these situations that can cause some of these delays?
Sure. So I'll say that obviously you get multiple calls coming at the same time, and as I said before, you got to prioritize the calls. So when we prioritize the calls, obviously someone will be ranked first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and you deal with them according to the resources that you have. Now, I'll say in terms of the resources, when the calls are meted out to the staff, and so we are still having a number of calls where persons refuse care when you get there, meaning that, persons who are well-meaning may call for the ambulance, but the person who the ambulance is for does not consent or changes their mind. So you'd imagine that that there may waste some time in terms of the inability to go for another call. The other thing that occurs sometimes, he would have spoken in terms of not finding persons, so we should be trying to put a system in place, see if we can use some technology in terms of Google Pins, etc., to actually locate people better. But the other thing that occurs is that an actual ambulance trip sometimes can take 2 hours. Now, here's why I say this. So it's the time not only from the call to when the ambulance is en route, but when you actually are going to the site. Barbados being a small place, 166 square miles, but still with the roads, with the traffic in terms of compliance, in terms of moving out of the way, etc., you may find that to some of the farther areas, it may take 30 minutes, 35 minutes to get there. Obviously, you get there, you do whatever assessment is to be done, whatever treatment, and then you're trying to make your way back to the one central hospital. So you can see that basically the contact time for one case could be in 2 hours or so. And then we may go to the accident emergency. They may be busy with some other cases, so you got to wait a little bit of time before you can move the patients over. So that's an ambulance pretty much out of circulation for about 2 hours or so. And with that, then you can't do any other calls with that particular unit. We are working behind the scenes to try to see if we can improve and increase our resources, see what we can do in terms of it. Patients who call frequently, what we call frequent flyers, to see if we can deal with some of their social situations, so that they wouldn't call for the ambulance so frequently.
So you're having frequent flyers?
Yeah, so we have
calling.
We have 4 who call every day, and not that things aren't wrong with them, but certainly things maybe that are emergent aren't wrong with them, and they're not basically utilizing their primary care resources, or maybe some social issues and stuff. We even have people sometimes who use the ambulance to get them right down to the city, which is abuse of the ambulance, etc. So the things that we look at, try to work behind the scenes. I noted your program before was talking a little bit about the seniors and stuff in terms of that, and there's some psychosocial issues and stuff which need to be addressed, which we're working with our social work team to see what we can do about that.
And the elderly for care, it is crop over, and we are seeing an increase already in our accident and emergency department, something that you're very, very familiar with as well, Dr. Byer. At this time of year and at Christmas, we see an increase in people basically abandoning their elderly relatives at the hospital. We would have heard this mentioned on the previous program. by one of the hosts. It's something that we are working with, as you said. Our social workers try to work with some of the families to ensure that we get some of the elderly in care that is more fit for them, because they're taking up hospital beds.
Correct.
And that is not what we need, because then they can spill over to your beds as well.
Correct.
Speak about that situation. Sometimes your beds are caught up.
Sometimes our beds are caught up at Accident Emergency Department, but I live for care, of course, for a long time. But there's a problem. There's a ricochet effect. When person stay on our beds for so long, it destroys our mattresses.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to order more mattresses and more mattresses all the time. So that's the main problem for us.
Yeah, but these things that we work through, and we try to ensure that we keep our service top notch, so
Correct.
that we can respond to the calls as they come. So what happens? Talk us through the situation. Give us that scenario. And just let me remind the callers the number to call: 434-1007, 434-1070, and the WhatsApp number is 434-1007. So paint a picture. What happens when the ambulance gets to the scene?
Okay.
Here we go. I can go for it. So here's the thing, all right? So obviously you've called because you need assistance. And, we get your information and we basically make our way to where you are. So, I mean, for a lot of cases and stuff, when we get there, there's some information that we will probably require of you, what we call a history in terms of what's happening medically with you. There's some level of examination that's going to go on by the pre-hospital care personnel, the EMTs, paramedics, etc. But once a decision is made to transfer, we try to transfer as much information as possible so that our colleagues in the hospital, as emergency in particular, can have enough information to work with. So things like your medication. What medications are you on? Do you know their names? Do you know their doses? So either you're going to bring them, and some people may have one medication, some people may have lots more than one. And, you bring them, or at least you know what they are. Things in terms of like allergies, any medical reports that you may have, because, sometimes people may have studies which are done outside of the hospital system. So you would have those private reports, private radiology reports, or ultrasound, etc., CAT scan, etc. So again, those are key things. So when we have that there, then we are armed with not only our evaluation, but armed with the other information that's required to basically make a decent handover when you get to accident emergency. The other thing is, before the ambulance gets there, there's some things that we would like to see happen. I know sometimes people have dogs, pets, etc. Obviously, sometimes they may pose a danger to the staff, so we like for the person to actually, put the dogs up or so. It wouldn't be a bad thing if someone can just look out for the ambulance. Because again, depending on the area or so, it may be a little bit of a run around. Some districts could be especially difficult to actually locate the person who indeed needs the ambulance. And those are the types of things that are currently seen. Obviously, then you are loaded and you are proceed to the hospital. That's our destination. When we get to the accident emergency, I think I want to dispel a myth that if you go by ambulance that you're seen faster than if you go privately. I'll say that again, there's a triage system there. So depending on what your case is, they'll either keep you on site or they may send you to the waiting room. So it is no guarantee that if you go by ambulance and stuff that you'll be seen sooner than if basically that you are transferred privately. So just wanted to put that there. Cases are dealt with by their merit.
Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Bynoe?
I concur with Dr. Byer. Persons believe that when they come by ambulance, they will be seen right away. All right, most persons believe that, but as Dr. Byer stated, you're triage again, and what I may reiterate, some persons, when the dispatcher asks the questions, some persons know exactly what to say to get an ambulance.
Right.
They know everything. They know everything, and they get the ambulance, but when they get to the hospital, they're triage, and most of the time they go straight outside, all right, because they know the answers to the questions that we will ask.
Wow. We have a WhatsApp coming in. Blessed good morning, Shane and Dr. Byer and Mr. Bynoe. I guess they're saying that Dr. Byer, you have a great bedside manner, but they're also asking you to explain to the public again the meaning of triage.
Sure. So triage really means to sort. That's the translation. So to sort means that you have a number of items and stuff which you have to sort by priority into, in this case, the level of which would be considered more serious. So we would put the cases which are potentially life or limb threatening right at the top. So things like chest pain, things like asthma attacks, things like seizures. On the traumatic end, things in terms of major gunshot wounds to, say, the head or the chest or so, things that potentially can cause major problems. Those are the things likely that will be attended to first, and those are the things that you want to get to as quickly as possible to decrease any morbidity or mortality. So again, then there will be other things, not saying that people aren't unwell or people aren't basically in pain or so, but again, with the resources available, I guess it obtains anywhere that you go where multiple people descend on a center. You got to be able to discern who is more serious and get to that person faster.
Indeed. I just want to repeat some numbers for you that you can call outside of the ones that you can call us here at 434-1007 or 434-1070, and the WhatsApp, as you just did, 434-1007. If you're making a complaint or compliment to us, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, through our clinical risk management unit, you can call again 436-6450, and then you have extensions 5234, 5247, 5248, and you can call those numbers Monday to Friday 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can also send an email to crmu@qeh.gov.bb, CRMU, that's Clinical Risk Management Unit, CRMU@qeh.gov.bb. You can also write a letter and address it to the Clinical Risk Management Unit, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Martindales Road, St. Michael. And then you have the other option of visiting us in person, and you come into the main entrance, you come to the pharmacy, but you don't go straight there. You take a little turn to the right, and then it's that door on the left, and there you can go to the Clinical Risk Management Unit and just have your concern addressed. Lay your complaint, have that concern addressed. It will be investigated, and it helps us to really improve the service at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And then there's also the patient advice and liaison service. Remember that our help desk, we really seek to help you in any way that you can. If you have a problem with your medication delivery service, if you have an issue with any kind of treatment that you would have received at the QH, you can call the patient advice and liaison service, and that number is 536-4800, 536-4800. So I just want to remind the public about those numbers, because those numbers are important. Those numbers are the way that we keep connected with you, the way that you can connect with us to allow us to better serve you. And that's all we're seeking to do here on the Pulse Radio Show. It's me, Shane Seeley, alongside Dr. David Byer today. He's the consultant and head of the EAS, the Emergency Ambulance Service, and Mr. Trevor Bynoe, a senior ambulance officer. So looking at some of those other things that you deal with, you mentioned earlier the handover process. Talk a bit more about that.
Right. So when the ambulance crew, armed with their information in terms of their history and the clinical examination that they would have basically engaged in with the patient, in addition, any intervention that they would have made, giving the patient oxygen, put an IV upon the patient, etc., they then go to the accident emergency department, and one of the senior doctors or nurses then basically takes over as a transition of care of patient from the ambulance to the health facility, in this case being the accident emergency department. So a summary of everything that was basically said is given to that person. They then take over the patient, and they make a decision based on the symptoms, whether the person will stay inside, whether the person will go on a bed, whether the person will sit, whether the person go to the waiting room and stuff in terms of that. So we all know sometimes it's a busy place, so I mean they're the best persons to make a decision with respect to where the patient goes. Unfortunately, sometimes it's so busy that there's no any bed to transition the patient to or so sometimes they remain on our ambulance trolleys, and we basically, once we transfer care, we then leave the department. Got to clean the ambulances up. Obviously, infection control is a big thing, so we got to make sure the ambulance is ready again to go for the next call. We have invested in spare trolleys, so the fact that that trolley is there doesn't mean that we can't respond to any other call. But I suppose that it all depends on how busy it gets and how many of the regular and spare trolleys are basically engaged in use. But that's how the process goes for the most part, and then on to the next call.
Yeah, and it's all about resources. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because it would be interesting to hear how you and your team handled Cricket World Cup and all that was associated with that. So we'll get back to that right after this commercial break.
For all your medical supply needs, visit MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited. We offer a wide range of products including wheelchairs, walkers, canes, crutches, blood pressure machines, stethoscopes, and so much more. Conveniently located on Jemmets Lane, just a 2-minute walk from the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And for your convenience, we deliver free to the QEH. Open Monday to Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Call us at 624-7542. MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited, your trusted source for medical essentials.
Yes, and you can call us too right here, 434-1007, 434-1070, and WhatsApp at 434-1007. I'm Shane Seeley, Communications Specialist with the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, alongside Dr. David Byer, who's the consultant and head of the Accident and Emergency Department. Look where I'm putting you.
Yes,
the Emergency Ambulance Service. And we also have Mr. Trevor Bynoe, who is a Senior Ambulance Officer with the EAS. It's been a pleasure to have the both of you on. Y'all were really busy in last month for Cricket World Cup as well. I imagine that it was a whole setup, a whole establishment that you had to do separate and distinct for what is a major event coming to our shores. How do you handle something like a Cricket World Cup where we welcome and open Barbados to the world?
Sure. So behind the scenes, a lot goes on in terms of the preparation. In fact, we were preparing for the World Cup from last year. So as an international major crowd event and stuff, you got to make sure that you cover all your bases in terms of the potential for problems to occur, whether they're medical issues or traumatic issues, and whether they're small issues in terms of to individual or to multiple people in terms of, say, worst case scenario, whether there was a stand collapse or something major happening at the venue. So it involves lots of tours, lots of preparation, lots of scenario training in terms of what can go wrong, and then what we're going to do in terms of the response. So for all the events, we were in standby or in place, and then we form a part of the National Emergency Response Framework through the Department of Emergency Management. So we work together with the other providers in terms of police, fire, Barbados Defense Force, etc., to make sure that the environment is safe as can be. So we were on standby for the entire month. I remember it's not only the days of the matches, it's also the peripheral events that take place around. And on the match day, we actually had our teams dotted around the stands and stuff. With kit around.
I saw them.
Oh yeah. Something that we pioneered around the 50th anniversary celebrations a few years ago. So we thought, to get the people faster, let's put the ambulance personnel with 2-man teams with as much kit as possible to be able to get to the patients and do what they need to do before we can extract them from the arena. So it was an exciting time and stuff during the Cricket World Cup. I mean, we've dealt with it before, back when it first occurred here. A couple of times the Cricket World Cup first occurred here. But again, it was a fun time. Luckily, there wasn't a whole lot of ill patients and stuff, but it was we dealt with. I will say, though, that that's not just unique to Cricket World Cup. I'd say crop over is always a big time, and we do the same thing for crop over as well in terms of preparing for the mass crowd events.
Well, I want you to hold that thought because I want to hear a bit more about that and about your experience, Mr. Bynoe. But we do have a caller on the line. Welcome to the Pulse Radio Show.
Yeah, good morning, Shane.
Good morning.
To you on the panel.
Thank you very much for coming in.
I have Dr. Byer. I would like him to buy some of the time that you have to spend when you come at the NE. I would like him to buy all some of that time for me.
Yeah.
But I call to congratulate some people. I spent 6 weeks in there, and this was the ICU. I don't know if they had a lady named Shade there as a nurse and a guy named George.
Okay.
They took care of me very well, and then when I leave there now and went down to C7, there was 3 nurses, Brown, Cyrus, and Torrington. I would like to say thanks to them too, because they handled me well. The young nurses didn't handle me well because they was more interested in keeping pretty. No, I'm serious about that. I think, and I will recommend that this lady Brown, that she, well, I don't know how much longer she have there,
right?
But that she do some training with doing, because she was a lady that, you know, before she leave the hospital, she knows to come along and make sure that her patients is all right. Okay. So I call out somebody that interested in you. And then I'm going to go to the ambulance service now. I believe that when the ambulance come for you, after you waited so long, so get you down to the hospital as quick as possible. But they keep you outside asking you a lot of questions. Then when you get down to the hospital now, before you get upstairs, you get answered back the same questions. And then the doctor come and ask you, so you have to have a good memory.
I see.
So those are things I would like to see change.
Right.
I feel there's a lot of time wasted.
Well, I'm going to let Dr. Byer and Mr. Bynoe answer your question. And
yeah,
it'll be good to
take some of that time away from me.
Yes, and stay on the line for the answer. Because the answer, they just spoke about this. They just addressed this a few moments ago about why it may seem like it may take a lot of time, but really and truly you're already receiving treatment as they are there on the scene with you. So Dr. Byer first, and then Mr. Bynoe, in terms of that Q&A that occurs, that it may seem to the patient that, look, you're delaying me, I want to get down to the hospital.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is I'm so happy that you're doing well, and that you basically would have spent that time in the hospital, and that you are here with us today. So let me finish. So I mean, that's very, very, very good, and I hope you continue to be well. The other thing,
I'm trying to get back there. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get back there.
Yeah. Well, you keep at it. The other thing I'll say, it's always good to have feedback, right? The first thing you said, which made me smile, is that you give positive feedback. So sometimes people think that feedback has to be negative all the time. But so thanks for that positive feedback.
I give credit where it is due.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that those nurses and stuff who basically went beyond the call of duty, especially that one that you mentioned, I'm sure that basically makes her feel happier and makes her a little bit more positive in her job today. Now, let me just say now to the latter part of what you said. Yeah, the latter part what you said. Well, I mean,
the ambulance.
Yeah. Let me just get to that part. So what I will say is that, unfortunately, sometimes we have a lot of calls to deal with. So sorry for that delay. And as Shane would have mentioned earlier, sometimes we have these incidents where now they're taking up a lot of our time with this violence and stuff, interpersonal violence, which is happening in Barbados. And the other thing which is also happening is that, we have a big burden of these non-communicable diseases, the diabetes and the high blood pressure and the complications of that, the heart issues and the kidney issues and stuff. So on any given day, there are like lots of calls, consumed by that. Not saying yours wasn't one of them. So it's always a situation then.
Actually, I had to wait over half hour for the ambulance. So that way, say in cases like that, when they come, they get you down to the hospital as quick as possible.
Yeah, and that's fine. And what I will say though, there's some information that is key that they collect. And also they look to see if they can do something for you en route, in terms of some people may need oxygen and that type of thing. But
I know they have the best interest at heart, but I would prefer the doctor that have the better training,
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but, medicine is a wide and diverse thing. Everybody has a role to play, nurses, doctors, and everybody. But, the important thing is that you got there safely and you were transferred for care, and then they would have gotten the relevant information to make sure that you did okay.
But the thing I don't like about that they take information, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get down now to the hospital, they got to go back through that same information.
Right.
And then the doctor going to come and ask you that same information, so you have brain after the radio.
Oh boy. Oh
Yeah, so
boy. Oh
there's
boy.
and caller, there's a reason for that. We have not only to make sure that you are that John Doe, because there's more than one John Doe in the department at that time, but we also have to ensure in terms of quality. This is a quality aspect of our service across the board, coming from EAS into accident and emergency, and then to the doctors who see you, because they have to make sure that the information that they're taking for you is correct. They have to ensure that the medication that they would prescribe for you, or any service that they would prescribe for you, is correct. So we have to make sure that we get you back to this state where you're saying, you're not fully there, but you're getting there. So that is a process. So you're going to get those repeated identity checks. You're going to get those repeated questions just to ensure that we are doing right by you.
Right.
So it's all about making sure that you get back to. And I tell people, right, when you can call us after coming through the emergency ambulance service and then accident and emergency, it would mean that your situation will have to be critical, and you're here talking to us today.
Correct.
That makes us very happy, because it means that we have done, I know you may have had to wait a bit, but it means that we have done our job to the best of our ability to get you back to that state.
Not crossing you, Shane.
No problem, you can cross me anytime.
A lot of people is afraid of the ICU, but I find that you get your best treatment from there.
But you would be afraid when you're sick. You would be afraid when you think your life is at risk.
But they tell you, why I say a lot of people is frightened to go there. But I find that you get your best interest there.
Man, listen, you be frightened anytime that you go to the doctor. I'm frightened for needles. I hate a needle. I can't stand a needle. But you know what?
You get your best interest in the ICU, though.
But I really thank you for sharing your story with us.
But you try, I know you all are trying to see what you can do, and all you can do is try and give it your best.
But that's
thank you very much,
you
sir.
just called it there.
Keep the good work up.
We appreciate your call.
Thank you.
And he's right. All we can do is try to do our best daily. We're not perfect. We're all humans. We make mistakes, but we gotta make fewer mistakes than most. We are held to a higher level of account than others. The doctors, the EMTs, the medical professionals, the medical fraternity is held to a higher level of account. We have another caller to the program. I got that one wrong. So let's continue and let's get into some of the trends that we've been seeing across the board. We have some more WhatsApps as well. So let's go there before I go to those other trends, because those other trends are interesting but disturbing at the same time. Blessings to all. Wish to express a special thank you to the emergency ambulance service for their pleasant approach to situations and professionalism towards their jobs. They keep up the good work. And another WhatsApp, good morning to all. Do you guys send out surveys to the patients to get the experience of their stay at hospital? I think you guys will get back a lot of what's going on. Well, in terms of the surveys, we have one online. So we always ask people, again, go to www.qhconnect.com, and when you go there and scroll down that home page, you will see a part which says your feedback matters to us. You click that and it will take you directly to one of our surveys, and you can go there. And the thing is, that's why I keep repeating the numbers for the complaints. That's why I'm repeating, because these are the facilities we offer the public to get that feedback from them, so that we can address what you were saying there, that WhatsApp into us a few moments ago. Let's address those concerns as they come in. Let's get that feedback so that we can continue to improve our service. So looking at some of those trends now, we've been seeing a lot more people tailgating.
Yes.
It's a very, very dangerous practice. I was always taught from the time I was learning to drive, when we see the sirens for any emergency vehicle, whether it be emergency ambulance service, it wasn't called that back then, but whether it be emergency ambulance service, fire, or police, pull to the side of the road, or pull to an area where you can allow the emergency vehicle to pass, because it may not always be to the left side of the road, especially if you're on the highway.
Correct.
If you're on the highway and on the inside lane, you really got to hold tight to the Jersey barriers.
Correct.
But other than that, you pull to the left side of the road for the ambulance to pass. Let's first talk about what you're seeing when you're out there, Mr. Bynoe, in terms of this tailgating, this dangerous practice.
Tailgating has been going on for quite some time. Even when I was in the EMT driving, persons always used to tailgate. And what I used to do at that point in time, I would stop, get out, go to them, and said, "Don't tailgate the ambulance," because seriously, because you can cause an accident. So I used to do that when I was on the road, right? My guys usually complain all the time about tailgating. Sometimes what we do is get the numbers and send them to the police.
Wow.
We used to do that from before, right? But now we're on this program, we prefer persons not to tailgate. Also, on hearing the siren or seeing the lights, the beacon, you must pull to the side and stop. What we have found is that persons, got the radio on, AC on, and they don't use their mirrors. Person driving with
so they can't hear.
They can't hear,
and they can't see peripheral.
No, they can't see anything. And only when the ambulance get right there, then they panic. They usually panic. Also, what I found is you're on the right side of the road going down. Say going to the hospital. Person is driving coming up, because we look down instead of looking ahead. That's our main. That's the public main problem. They don't look ahead. They don't plan ahead. It's always thought when you're driving, you see a ball, you must be careful. But persons don't see the ambulance until the ambulance get right in front of them.
Whoa.
Right? They're not looking ahead, and that's our main concern. Hearing the siren, not pulling over, but for some reason, most of the time they don't hear, and you must think so. What we usually do is stay on the outside, hoping that they would see the lights and stuff, hoping, right? But persons in front, they be blowing the horn and doing everything, and sometimes they still don't stop.
And in some cases, it has resulted in the worst case scenario, which is involving our emergency ambulance service vehicles in accidents, Dr. Byer.
Yes, indeed. And that accident resulted not only in injury to some staff, but also to the patient within.
Correct.
And which is a concern because, again, you have innocent people who are inside the vehicle who would have basically suffered from, the misadventure of one person. What I will say in terms of ambulance presentation, you mentioned it at the top. So what we're trying to do now is to try to make the ambulance a little bit more visible. So you're going to see a lot of fluorescent decor of sorts on the ambulance, especially on the back in terms of reflective markings. You're probably going to see a little bit more lights in terms of strobe lights and stuff to try to make up, because sometimes it may be difficult to hear depending on how the wind is blowing, where you are, etc. So to make the vehicle a little bit more visible. Especially in terms of when
as I said, they're very pretty. You cannot miss them on the road.
Stuff in terms of that there. So it's a work in progress.
So I'll give you a scenario. What happens if you have a patient, for instance, gunshot wound, head into the hospital, and someone tailgates the ambulance and they run into the ambulance? What happens? Do we stop? How do we handle a situation like that?
Okay.
Yeah, so what I would say, it's up to the judgment of the staff to determine the seriousness of the case they have. If it indeed is a very, very serious case, as you mentioned, where there's a life or death situation, they will go on, and then basically the information and stuff can be sorted out.
Because we have our ambulances outfitted with cameras as well.
Yeah. So what if, however, it's not a very serious thing, especially if there's no injury within, we basically may stop, call a backup ambulance, and so to take the patient down for the rest of the way. In fact, sometimes we've had to call backup ambulances for not only the patients but also for the staff, and then basically address the accident in terms of the specifics required for insurance or police purposes or so.
Yeah, please, we would ask motorists on the road, please try to leave home early if you think that that you'll be pressed for time. But do not tailgate. It is very, very, very dangerous, not only for yourself, but for the patient in the ambulance, for our ambulance officers, etc. Welcome to the program. This is the Pulse Radio Show. Good morning, caller. What's your question or comment?
Hi, good morning. I just have a question. sometimes when I'm driving with my other half, I notice that we don't really hear the siren from the distance. Is there a possibility you could get the sirens volume up more louder so you can hear it from a distance? Because most times you're driving, you can see the siren, we will pull over, but you're not really hearing it until it gets really, really close to you. So I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that they could probably fix the volume of the sirens, because it's not just the ambulance, the fire and the police, you don't really hear them either. You just see the flashing lights. So it's how could you, you could be behind us, but we can't hear you until you get really, really close. So I just wonder if there's a possibility of the volume being a little louder, even if they have the window shut or not. You can't really hear the sirens, the sound of the sirens.
Yeah, everyone has their. Thanks for the question, caller. Everyone has their AC on nowadays.
Correct.
And I know some vehicles, when you shut the door of some vehicles, then you hear the window go up an extra notch as if to seal the vehicle. And of course that may kill some of the outside sound. Is that a possibility of raising the level of the ambulance, the siren, so that our motorists could hear now that everyone wants to be cool in this heat?
Okay, what I did, I was responsible for the ambulances. What I did, I changed the horns. Hello, to a louder horn, all right. And but sometimes, and the module for the siren, it can turn up or it can turn down, but we asked the guys to keep them up, all right. And we know that person sometimes they don't hear, they're playing the music and stuff, so we asked them to just stay put until they hear. That's all one can do, right?
Stay put till you hear. You see the siren,
which
is one part of it.
You see the lights. Right? So what the guys do then is to stay put, don't force until the person sees you. So when we drive on the outside, right? Hoping that they will see the lights, see everything, and not to force. Because if you force, you will cause an accident. And we try not to cause accidents. So we just patient.
Okay, so for those motorists, you see the siren, make up in your mind that you have to pull to the side of the road.
Correct.
And then you'll hear, and then you're ready to decide, you wait and let the ambulance pass.
Correct, and that's what we asked them to.
Okay. I know some radio stations or some radio DJs, some people might be listening to their radio. It may be live radio, or it may be, their Apple iPlay, whatever they have. And some of the sessions or the DJ sessions or the music has sirens in them. So it could confuse you.
Could confuse you. But if you drive behind, if ambulance is driving behind a car, the ambulance is backward. So when you look in your mirror, you should see ambulance. You should see the ambulance right there. So you should know an ambulance if you use your mirrors most of the time.
Any tip for road users? Any more tips, I should say, for our road users when they see the lights or hear the sirens or see the sirens approaching?
Even sometimes when I drive, I play my music, but I'm always cognizant. I'm always looking for the lights. And usually when I see the lights, I'm the ambulance officer, I always pull. But persons nowadays, they listen to music, AC on, and they don't use the mirrors.
And one other bad practice in the phone. One other bad practice. Remember, that is a reportable offense, people. Please stop using your phones. You cannot have your phone in your hand. I know it connects to the audio, the stereo.
Yes,
now.
Mine connects to the audio.
So, but please try not to be distracted by the phone when you're driving. We're seeing that cause too many rear-end collisions, too many minor accidents as well, and some major.
Correct. But let me add one thing. With the dispatcher, when the dispatcher finishes, the dispatcher always asks for 2 numbers. We prefer 2 numbers because, for example, if something happens, we would like to call back, right? So if you're home, you have your home number, but if you happen to step out, you can always call your cell phone. So because if we don't hear you, resources are quite limited. Right, and so we don't hear you, and we call. That's going to be a delay for you most of the time. So we need 2 numbers.
Right,
and
remember,
we will ask for 2 numbers.
I remember you're calling 511.
Yeah,
I remember you said, Dr. Byer, that if people call 511 and they really want the police or fire, that we redirect them. And I'm assuming that the same occurs for the other emergency providers as well.
Yeah, well, the crossover lines, as they call that, they have the ability to do that there and stuff. I think that sometimes it's done. I mean, sometimes, depending on the situation, they may actually just give them the number or so, because sometimes some of the things that they may require maybe a little bit more than we may be able to handle. For the most part, we can transfer the call over.
Any final words? I'm going to start with you this time, Mr. Bynoe. Any final words for our listeners out there in terms of observing the emergency ambulance service as they do their work, when you come to the scene to help them? Any final thoughts?
Well, what I can say is when you see an ambulance, just pull to the side. And if you want to assist in any way, just ask the crew. And we usually, especially in accidents, we would ask for your help and under our instruction, of course. Just assist us when we do our work.
Okay. One more thing that I want you to address, Dr. Byer. I know some people bring their loved ones or the injured party to the hospital in private vehicles in some instances. How should we go about managing those situations? I know many people will be thinking in such situations, it's life or death. I need to help that person on the scene immediately. Is there a right way and a wrong way in terms of doing this?
Right.
Or a right situation and a wrong situation in terms of deciding whether you should bring that person to the accident and emergency department in private vehicle?
Right. So notwithstanding what I said before in terms of the myth that if you come by ambulance, you get seen preferentially to those who are coming by private. But what I will say is that sometimes I think persons may need to make a judgment call. So there's some situations and stuff where the urgency of the situation would merit that, if the ambulance will take a while to get there, either through unavailability or maybe distance or so. And so, for instance, let's say someone unfortunately suffered some major trauma where they were, shot or stabbed or so, there's lots of bleeding. Sometimes you got to make a call in terms of maybe we should make our way down, and that's the best chance the person has. There are some scenarios, though, for instance, in motor vehicle accidents whereby, moving a person by the unskilled hand may cause further damage. So, for instance, let's just say a person may have injured their neck, and they're sitting in a vehicle or so in a motor vehicle accident. If the person moves them without appropriately stabilizing or taking care of their neck, the movement itself can worsen a spinal cord injury, all right, which can then lead to paralysis, etc. So in those scenarios, if you are, not sure about it, not sure what you're doing or so, it may be best to just wait and leave it to the professionals. But, largely I'll say it's a judgment call, and you need to basically look in terms of the gravity of the situation and decide what is best at that time.
And the fact that Barbados is a population which boasts a 99% literacy rate helps in terms of making those judgment calls. We should be smart enough in such instances, but if you are in doubt, you can always call 511, the emergency ambulance service, to get that level of assistance. I really want to thank you, Dr. Byer. He is the head of the emergency ambulance service. He's a consultant as well. I want to thank you not only for coming here today and telling you happy birthday again, and as an up and on member as well.
Yes, indeed.
Up and on member.
Indeed.
Yeah, but I want to salute you for your service and your dedication to the people of Barbados as you respond to the entire population. And that's what you're responding to, the demands of the entire population when they are in need of emergency care out in the field. And a big thank you to you too as well, Mr. Trevor Bynoe, our senior ambulance officer. They do such good work, and we must salute our emergency personnel, because they will be there for you at the end of the line when you call to give you that level of assistance there, and then when they get on the scene. I want to thank you, listeners, for being with us here on the Pulse Radio Show. A lot more in store coming next week. We're going to talk a bit more about some things happening in hospital. We got some major improvements coming up. So we're going to give you some insight into those improvements that we have in line for you at our hospital. Remember, it is our hospital and we want to continue to serve you in the best way possible. Remember, you can call our patient advice and liaison service at 536-4800, and I gave you those numbers for the clinical risk management unit to air your concerns or to share your compliments as well. This has been another edition of the Pulse Radio Show. I'm Shane Seeley signing off for today. See you next week.
Your QEH Pulse Radio Show, brought to you with the compliments of MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited.
For all your medical supply needs, visit MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited. We offer a wide range of products including wheelchairs, walkers, canes, crutches, blood pressure machines, stethoscopes, and so much more. Conveniently located on Gemmetts Lane, just a 2-minute walk from the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And for your convenience, we deliver free to the QEH. Open Monday to Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Call us at 624-7542. MedSafe Medical Supplies Limited, your trusted source for medical essentials.